welcome to History Untold. We're covering the Lords Proprietors of Colonial America, Chapter 3. What kind of government did Monk and his fellow warpreneurs organize in Carolina? The charter specified 8 Lord Proprietors from Parliament, and their descendants would inherit their proprietorships. The first order of business was to divide up the real estate. The proprietors allotted 40% of the land to themselves, which they mostly leased or sold. The remaining 60% was devoted to the economy and carved into smaller portions for the undertaker businesses, coming with employees. Charter created thousands of baronies, each consisting of 12,000 acres, across the modern states of North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Eastern Tennessee, as well as New Jersey. They likely owned 2 to 3 million acres per proprietor. Bill Gates owns about 275,000 acres of farmland in 2024. Besides gigantic land grants to 8 families, the Carolina Charter stipulated fees and dividends to be paid to the proprietors and their descendants, 1/4 of any gold or silver discovered, property taxes of 1 penny an acre, fees and commissions paid by companies that perform mining, whaling, or fishing. The proprietors needed businesses with skilled labor and money to set up in the colony to produce goods for export to Europe. So they used incentives to attract minor nobility business leaders, known as undertakers. How was this privately owned corporation going to attract these undertaker settler companies? It was an expensive and perilous 60-day sail across the Atlantic Ocean. Plus, the original American tribes were anxious to defend their homeland against these European newcomers. The undertakers owned companies which hired employees using indentured servant contracts. These labor contracts between owners and employees, they were called servants back then, required the servant to perform work for 5 to 7 years contemporaneous to the master's legal obligation to provide housing, clothing, and food to the employee. These employee servants worked for the undertaker's company as farmers, builders, metal workers, fur traders, and managers to produce goods for export to Europe. The proprietors' companies played the role of purchaser and shipper of the goods via the proprietors' import-export companies and shipping companies, which would transport the goods for resale in Europe. The primary incentive offered was land in exchange for the quantity of people an undertaker company transported to the colony. The proprietors paid the undertakers 100 acres per man and 50 per woman. This headright system was used until the Civil War to create territories and states. Instead of paying directly for the land and then hiring labor, an undertaker company would hire the labor using indentured servitude contracts with people in Europe and then pay to ship them to the company. Upon arrival, the proprietor governor's office would grant the company land based on its head count of employees. Another incentive was the promise of internal peace, which business owners require before investing for the long term. To this end, the proprietors wrote laws enforcing religious toleration. For example, quote, that civil peace may be maintained amidst the diversity of opinions. No man shall use any reproachful, reviling, or abusive language against the religion of any church or profession, that being a certain way of disturbing the peace, unquote. Why was religious toleration so critical to the business objectives of the proprietors? For the past 150 years, religious wars in Europe had claimed over 10 million lives and millions more transported as servants or slaves to Muslim kingdoms in the north of Africa and European colonies in the Caribbean and South America. At the time of the 1600s, the primary religious war that impacted the Carolina colony was that of the Protestant Huguenot kingdoms versus the Catholic kingdoms of Spain and France. This ends Chapter 3. Join me next time to see how this violent rivalry feeds into Britain's plans to colonize the Americas.